Okay. No other questions. We'll go ahead and push into, how do I get into cybersecurity as a career? I will absolutely admit, hands down, unequivocally, this is the number one question that I get asked anytime, anywhere, whether I speak at conferences, whether I go to dinner with friends, whether I go to dinner with I've done several mentoring um, sessions with high school kids and college kids, and I've guest spoken at numerous universities and whatnot. And there's always the conversation of how do I get into cybersecurity as a career. Um, I want to talk about my history a little bit and how I got into cybersecurity. Not that I think that everybody should follow my path. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody should absolutely follow my path. I think my path was too hard. And I say that jokingly. There's probably a lot of you know purist and general purist and other old farts like myself that have been in cybersecurity for a while who are probably going to disagree with this. But I want to explain to you my past so that you can better understand why it is that I feel the way it is that I do about getting into this career field. Um, so I started in cyber in the 90s. Now in the 90s, there was no cyber did not exist, right? I can only say that in retrospect because we now have this career called cyber. But in the 90s, my dad stuck a computer in front of me and said, "Here, figure this thing out." And before long, I was writing my very first, password brute forcer, to log into bulletin board systems. I got fortunate throughout my career. I joined the Air Force in the early 2000s after September 11th. But between the 90s and that time period, I was a network admin, or I was a graphical user designer for several companies. And security just happened to be something that, we did just because it was interesting to us. So I used to do graphical user interface design for HVAC systems out of North Carolina. And, um, you know, it was written, in a very, very easy, it was written in HTML, but I was still playing around with cross-site scripting and trying to write my user interfaces with cross-site scripting, even though I had no proof or data or knowledge of, what a pen test was or whether anybody would actually even be trying to execute cross-site scripting on those user interfaces. Um, Similarly, I went to work for a startup in the early 2000s where I was a network admin for them. We didn't have security, engineers, in this startup. When we programmed up the routers and the firewalls, when we did, Active Directory configurations, when we had domain controllers back in the old Windows NT days. God, I'm really aging myself on this one. Security was just something that we did because we knew it was the right thing to do. And it wasn't actually until I was in the Air Force that I actually got into cybersecurity as a career, knowing where you had it. It was a nomiker. You could say that this is a career. You are doing cybersecurity on a day-to-day basis. And so anybody who tells you that, like, you've got to suck dirt to get into cybersecurity, I think that's problem number one that we have in this industry. I think that because of the fact that we have, university degrees now, specifically tailored towards information security and specifically tailored towards cybersecurity. University of Maryland has both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in cybersecurity. I think it is because of that mainstream acceptance now into cybersecurity that a lot of us old dogs that if you come across any old dog that tells you that you got to suck dirt like the rest of us to get into cybersecurity, those are folks that haven't accepted reality that because it's as mainstream as it is, you no longer have to suck dirt to get into cybersecurity. And so I think that's kind of like, realization number one is that there's too many egos that we have inside of cybersecurity that think that you've got to do it the exact same way, that we did it, when we were growing up. Also, with that being said, right, thanks, Confusion. Thanks for checking in. Have a good night. Appreciate you, stopping by for the stream. I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the future. And so because of that, right? So getting into that, getting into cybersecurity and starting to do it in the Air Force was a real eye opener to me, that of the way that the world has evolved, and having a dedicated career path in cybersecurity. And so as cybersecurity has evolved, right, um, I think one of the things that we've got to realize is that we now have to change the way in which we encourage folks to get into cybersecurity, right? You know, you don't have a plumber who tells somebody who wants to get involved in figuring out how to be a plumber, right, that they need to go out there and find a leaking house and figure out how to fix it on their own if they want to be a plumber, right? They send them to a vocational school, and they send them to all of this training that they need to do so that they can go be a good plumber. And so I think we've got to really change our mindset when it comes to how do we encourage folks to get into cybersecurity and how to get into it as a career. The fact of the matter is that cybersecurity is here to stay, right? Cybersecurity is as much of our day-to-day life and as part of our day-to-day conversations, as anybody else. And so, that's the whole reason, again, I get back to why we started the stream, right, is that we want to have cybersecurity as part of those day-to-day conversations. And so as such, we've got to start treating cybersecurity careers and folks who want to get into cybersecurity much the same way that we want to, have those conversations with our kids about any other career topic. So taking a step back, that's kind of my story about, how I got into cybersecurity. It was very much an accident. Talked to numerous people who've gotten into it, equally as accidental. And then there's definitely been people that I've talked to that have made a very pointed distinction about, choosing to be in cybersecurity. Those of you who are out there listening right now that are trying to make that decision on getting into cybersecurity and how to go about doing it, I kind of go back to what we were talking about before in the previous section, which is what is cybersecurity is and what cybersecurity isn't. It's very, very easy to get caught up in saying, well, I want to get into cybersecurity because I like to hack. Admirable, but slightly misguided. And again, that's definitely going to be an unpopular opinion. That's not the only reason to get into cybersecurity. We should want to get into cybersecurity, because you have, a propensity to solve problems, because you have a propensity to think analytical, because you have a propensity to think in a very risk-based fashion and understand the risk of an organization and understand how to help an organization navigate that risk and to be successful in their mission through navigating through that risk. There are lots of career paths when it comes to cybersecurity. If you missed the first section of the video, one of the analogies that I gave about getting into cybersecurity, right, is that cybersecurity is an ocean that's a mile wide and a mile deep, and you're just on this one little dinghy, one little fishing boat out in the middle of that ocean, fishing for your type of fish. And whether you go, a foot deep, 2 feet deep, or you go that full mile deep can really determine how deep you get into a cybersecurity career field. Nobody, I don't care who they are in this industry, if we're using that ocean analogy, nobody has expertise in the entire mile by mile section of that ocean. I don't care how long you've been in this industry. I don't care how good you are. Nobody has that level of expertise in cybersecurity. And so don't let anybody, lie to you or tell you otherwise. And so one of the hardest parts is, with cybersecurity, the hardest question that I get asked and the hardest question that I have to answer is, how do I get started? So let's start with that. Number one, how do I get started? Honestly, the number one thing that you can do to get started is to find what interests you. And I know that seems like a cop-out answer, and I promise you it's not. Even if it is hacking, even if it's hacking and pen testing, start with hacking and pen testing. Start learning Kali Linux. Go out there, find Kali Linux. Go do, any of the courses that are out there. eLearn Security is a great a great example of courses that you can take out there. Go start taking courses. Go to YouTube, right? Start looking at YouTube videos on hacking, but don't think that you want to be a hacker just because it's cool and there's a lot of information out there. Take that information and use that analytical process and kind of put it to the test. When I talk about that, it's like, if and watching these videos, you find out that you love malware and you love understanding how malware works, and you're interested in writing malware, you're interested in writing viruses, you're probably also interested in reverse engineering malware, and you're reverse engineering viruses and things like that. Start to research that stuff and start to go down that thread and pull on that thread. Let's say that you get to a point on that thread and it gets really boring for you, or you lose interest in that. Maybe go back to the hacking, go back and look at the methodology of pen testing, and maybe all of a sudden you realize that you like OSINT, or open source intelligence gathering. And so you start to go down the open source intelligence gathering. You may find that you may end up in a career in intelligence. And then, honestly, you may end up in a career in intelligence, but then you may backtrack out of that career into something else as you dive more into, that career in intelligence. Let's say that you're not very technical, and that's fine. One of the things I probably should have mentioned in what cybersecurity is and cybersecurity isn't is this misconception that cybersecurity is 100% technical. There's actually some very good business tracks that are out there when it comes to cybersecurity, right? Whether we talk about being, in a risk organization, right? How do you be part of an organization whereby you do risk assessments, which are very similar to penetration testing, just without the technical aspect of it? How do you, how do you look at an organization's risk profile and help them understand the return on investment from making certain types of risk decisions as they pair with the cybersecurity controls that are put in place? There's cybersecurity program managements, right, where you get to be in charge of, the entirety of a program deployment. Let's say that an organization wants to deploy a new identity and access management program. You could be an identity and access management person, or you can be a program lead, program management that builds and establishes an entire, identity and access management program. We even have some business-related tracks for things like fraud prevention. These are huge inside of banks and other financial organizations, whereby it's very FBI-ish, right? It's very police work, investigative type stuff. Not necessarily technical, but you're investigating fraud. There's a lot of anti-money laundering stuff, and especially with the rise of crypto, and the rise of a lot of the things that are digital currencies, digital money laundering, lots of good stuff out there. That fraud prevention and fraud management is something really interesting that you can get into that doesn't require a large amount of technical skills. I think everybody can beat up the technical track of cybersecurity, right? Whether we talk about scripting and programming, whether we talk about cryptography, any of the network defense stuff. There's tons of stuff that can be had across on the on the technical side that I think you can find tons of data points for. And so really find that thread and then start to pull on that thread. So point number 2, just to kind of talk about, some very specific points about getting started in cybersecurity. One of the problems that, some of the older folks in this generation and in this career field will tell you is, well, we didn't have Google when we started. I hate that excuse. We didn't have Google. No, we didn't. But this generation, these people this day and age, they do have Google. And so I would encourage you that you should use your Google. That's not from like an egocentric perspective, but there is so much to learn out there. You couldn't consume it all in a day. My daily routine for those, one of the questions I get asked very frequently is what is my daily routine of staying up to date on topics and staying interested? I'll give it to you, right? Reddit, Twitter, and LinkedIn, right? And that's not the entirety of it, but that's where I start. And then same thing that I just told you before in point number 1, right, was find a thread and pull on it. So you start at those 3 levels, and you find a thread and you pull on it, right? Don't just take everything at face value, on those three platforms by any stretch of the imagination. But let's say that you go to Twitter, and you find somebody who's talking about a brand new tactic, technique, or procedure, right? Somebody posts something on GitHub to talk about a new hack or a new way of doing things, right? Pull on that thread and really go to that page, go look at that code, go look at that resource and figure out how they're doing it. And that may open up some more, parts of your brain that help you understand what it is about this career field that attracts you and that you want to be a part of. But use those resources. I think one of the big things that I would tell new folks coming into this career field that I think they've that they don't take into consideration very well, right, is just the amount of resources that are out there for folks to educate themselves on. Now, that doesn't mean don't ever ask questions. As a matter of fact, one of the primary reasons why I started this chat, right, was to give folks a more readily accessible resource, whether they're coming into the career field or whether they're, an outsider looking at this career field. I see we've got some people from Facebook who are joining the event right now. I'm sure that this is, a myriad of, folks who may be in the career field, but are probably also folks who are just interested in the career field or interested in how to protect themselves. And so, having that venue that you can go and talk to folks on, I think is incredibly important. And so, when you go to ask people cybersecurity questions, we need to be more open and more respectful of folks who are coming in and wanting to have that conversation. So point number 2, definitely make more use of, the resources that are out there. I think kind of as a 2.A, right, to that one, if I made a 2.A to this, right, is, if you're on the technical side of things and you want to do more technical stuff with cybersecurity, don't underestimate the value of, putting your hands on a keyboard. Create a lab environment. Back in my day, I promise you I won't use that term very frequently on this stream. We had to rely on 50 computers. If we wanted to be able to build a lab, every lab machine had to be its own individual computer. And then we eventually got to VMs, and then computing power got to be so awesome these day and age, right, where you can probably, on most laptops these days, if you got like a MacBook Pro or a decent mid-sized laptop, you can get away with having, a Kali VM for your hacking machine and a Windows machine on the same laptop. And there's your lab environment right there. So don't underestimate the value of having your own lab equipment to, get your hands dirty and get your hands on things. On the non-technical side, slightly harder, other than, reading a lot of reports and really just trying to, wrap your head around some of the things that are happening in the industry, from that perspective. Let's say that you've done those things. Let's say that you've started on a thread. So point number 1, you've started on a thread, right? You're in this career field. You're sitting on the outside of this career field. You're looking to get into it. You found a thread. You started to pull on a thread. Okay, you're now into a thread. You're now watching videos on YouTube. You're watching my stream on a regular basis. We're having conversations in Discord about it. What do you do next? This is the time that I think that you start to reach out and look for some of the cybersecurity certifications that are out there. Confusion in chat earlier, he had a point, right? He's currently learning the basics from a Udemy course. It's pretty fleshed out. But he's asking for other free online resources. So I'd go to point number 2, right? That's a fantastic question to ask Confusion. That's exactly the right way to get in his career field, right? Is you've done your research. You're now out there on Udemy. You're working with something like eLearn Security, OffSec, SANS if you can afford it, right? You're out there getting those certifications. It's only until point 3 that I would really focus on, where do you spend your money, from an education perspective. Over the course of my career, I've had the privilege of mentoring a lot of junior folks coming up in this organization or in multiple organizations. They almost always come to me, almost immediately, and say, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. And whenever they say that, my first question is, well, how much have you self-learned first? I'll give you an example. I had, an incident response analyst that worked for me a number of years ago, and we had just stood up a pen testing program inside of our security operations team. And he came to me after one of our first pen test engagements, and he really, really, really liked, watching the pen test guys work and kind of do their thing. And he said, I want to do that. I'd like to take a SANS class to go do that. My first answer to him was no. I am sure everybody on this stream hates me right now. He couldn't tell me any of the other self-learning things that he had done prior to asking me to send him to a SANS class. And that's not an elitism. That's not egotism. That's just the sheer abundance of free information, right, that's out there that can help you get into this. The arguments for coursewares, they're structured. Yeah, absolutely they are. There's tons of videos that are out there that are structured. There's tons of free educational platforms that are out there that are structured. There are, tons of hands-on capture the flag events out there that are structured. And they're all free. And I think there's been a lot of, we've been hesitant to actuate on a lot of the free sources because we still have that old mentality that wants to run and get a cert to the back of our name. And so I would discourage anybody watching this stream who's trying to get into the career field, don't chase certs. Are certs valuable? Absolutely. Are they important? Debatable. I think the fourth point and the last point that I'll make about, getting involved in cybersecurity from a career perspective is never stop learning. The bad guys never stop learning. Right? And I know that may sound cliche, or it may sound, kind of taboo, or whatever the case is, but the bad guys are out there. They're learning new ways to hack systems. They're learning new ways to beat our defenses. They're learning new ways to get around all the things that we're putting in place. The regulations around the world are changing on a regular basis, right? Between GDPR, CCPA, China and Russia are about to come, with their own, cybersecurity laws, as well. And so, the world around us from a cybersecurity perspective is probably one of the fastest changing digital worlds that exist out there. And so as a result of that, you can't stop learning. Here's what is particularly difficult for me in this space. Cybersecurity has been such a integral part of my life for well over half my life, well over 20 years. That it's not a 9-to-5 job for me. I wake up in the morning and I'm checking Twitter and Reddit and LinkedIn, and I'm reading the news that's out there. I do my job, throughout the day. When I pause from one job, I go to another job and I do more cybersecurity there. And it's not really even a job. I even hesitate to call it a job. As a matter of fact, I tell people frequently that I haven't worked a day, in the last 15 years, that I've actually had a career in cybersecurity because of just how much fun I have in this, in this space. And so as a result, I'm going to do this stream now. We got about 15 more minutes left in this stream, to talk about cybersecurity. But when I get done, I'm going to go do more cybersecurity. I'm not advocating for everybody on the stream to be like me. That's a bad habit to do. As a matter of fact, there's a thing as a work-life balance that I do not have at all, and I'm a victim of that. But I say all that to say that, cybersecurity changes that frequently, and cybersecurity is constantly improving, constantly evolving at such a rapid pace that if you sleep on it, you run the risk of missing something. And so find that balance that's right for you, but keep learning. And I would encourage you to keep learning in a way that makes the most sense with you. One of the things that I don't want to overlook as well when I talk about keep learning, right, is the value of networking and the value of, like coming to the stream and asking questions. And we've had several good, chat folks, that have asked questions and things like that. And I'm going to go through the chat here in a little bit and answer some very specific questions. But don't stop networking with folks. Don't stop talking to folks in your peer. Don't stop learning from them. Put the ego to the side. You'll never be the smartest person in this industry, because this industry changes and grows so much. So, just kind of recap right on those four things, right? Four things real quick to get into cybersecurity, right? First and foremost, find that thread and pull on it, right? There is no singular entry point when it comes to getting into cybersecurity. And so find that thread and pull on it. Secondly, research the living heck out of whatever thread it is that you started to pull on. Go to YouTube, go to Google, read documentation, watch videos, do whatever, talk to people in the industry, ask questions, and get all the free information that's out there, and stuff your head with the free information first. After you've stuffed your head with all that free information, then you can kind of go out there and search for a certification that makes sense, and make sure that certification is the most relevant and most applicable to you and what it is you're trying to achieve. And then finally, fourth and foremost, make sure you never stop learning. Learn through mistakes. Fail and fail hard and fail fast. Learn by networking with folks and talking to other people in your industry. Learn by staying up to date on current events and things like that. And so, those are the four things that I would say to get into cybersecurity.